everyone. Welcome back to another K&E Theater Group Local Spotlight Series. Today's interview is with someone that we all know and we all love. But before we get into that, really quickly, like I've said at the beginning of every other interview, because of the pandemic, K&E Theater Group, as well as many other theaters in our area, are suffering due to the pandemic. And so we are asking if you are inclined to donate. That'll help us with our 2021 supersized season, which I'm so excited about. If you're on Facebook, there is a PayPal link in the comment section. You can click on that and donate there. If you're not on Facebook, you're on IGTV or our YouTube channel, or you are on Facebook and you're like, I want to donate later. You know what? Guess what? You can. All you have to do is go to ketg.org and click on Support KETG and donate there. Well, I'm really, really excited about today's guest. I have watched so much of her work, and it is always so wonderful and nuanced, and she is wonderful. It's wonderful. There's nothing else I can say. So I'd like to introduce everyone to Sharon FitzHenry. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about this, so I want to get started. So the first question is the same question that I ask everybody at the beginning of every interview, and that is, what is your theatrical timeline? Where did you start? Where are you now? And give us all the fun tidbits in the middle.
Okay. Well, I've been doing this for a very long time. Probably like a lot of your folks. I started when I was a kid. I started in elementary school, did plays all through high school, and then I actually went to get an undergraduate degree in acting, and went from there to Texas Tech University for a master's degree in acting and directing.
Wow.
And from there, I had a summer program. I went to Granbury Opera House outside of Fort Worth, Texas. I'm from Texas.
Okay.
That was my first professional job. They did a month of each show, and then we turned the show over in 24 hours. So it was an all-nighter after strike to get ready for the next one.
Wow.
But it was fun. It was my very first job. We got paid $50 a month with housing, but it was fun. After Texas Tech, I went to Arkansas Rep and spent a year there. From there, I went to West Virginia, and I did a lot of directing and costuming and a little bit of lighting design for a dinner theater. And then I went to an outdoor drama and spent a summer doing outdoor drama.
Wow.
In West Virginia, was still in there. From there, I went to Philadelphia and I worked for Walnut Street Theater, which is where I got my equity card, and did some jobbing out with Delaware Theater Company and some other local stuff in the area. And then I had a really great lead on a cheap sublet in New York. So from there, I went to New York. I didn't have a job. I didn't have an agent. I just had an equity card and stood on line with thousands of others in the middle of the rain and snow, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world. But got a few jobs, sent me back out. I was at Mill Mountain Theater in Roanoke, Virginia,
Oh, wow.
to do a production of Midsummer. You know what it's like when you just scatter about. It did an off Broadway. It was I was in New York for a little over 2 years and loved it. Had a chance to go back to my undergraduate university and be a guest director. And so I taught some undergraduate acting classes and directed shows for about a year. And then decided to start a small equity company on the campus of that same university. And it was a really great arrangement because I could involve the undergrads with the equity actors that were coming in. It was a great time. From there, I came to Connecticut. I was a dresser at Hartford Stage as my first job in Connecticut, which was fun because those folks, I forget what it was called. We Ain't Your Uncle or something close to that. It was a takeoff of Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Uh-huh.
And all those folks went to New York during one of their Mondays and auditioned for Rent. And so a whole bunch of that cast was in the original cast of Rent. So that was kind of a fun brush with fame. Then I started directing in Connecticut, and here I am.
Oh my goodness, you've been everywhere.
I've done a little bit of everything. Yes.
I love that though. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, tell me a little bit about that Equity Theater in Texas.
Sure. It was very fortuitous in that the university was trying to get a little bit more professional experience for their kids. And a friend of mine and I had been going back and forth with what it would be like to have a small professional company. So we went all in and had 2 years. We were a nonprofit, full board. You know what that's like, starting a new theater company. But we had a great time. We started with a show called 6 Women with Brain Death or Expiring Minds Want to Know. And it was a parody of the National Enquirer.
Oh, wow.
Which was really fun. But we did Terra Nova and Baby and Pump Boys and Dinettes, some Ackborn. One of the shows that was really special while I was down there at the Rep, we did a production of Beckett, Jean-Louis Beckett. And we did it in conjunction with the Deaf Ed department on the campus so that we shadowed the production. So that every actor who was speaking had a signing actor. So there were 2 Kings, 2 Becketts, 2 everything.
So
and
similar to what Deaf West does.
It's exactly, yes, it's the same idea. So we did this in '94 and it was wonderful. It was so dynamic and it gave so many nuances to the characters. If the king was thirsty, you know, if a line said the king was thirsty, then it might be that the signing king pours the drink and they fight over who gets the first sip. I mean, it created so many levels of, it just was really, really magical. So I'm hoping to do that again in the future. But it was a good 2 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. So now we're talking about you as a director. So what is your process? What is your process from getting that script in your hand for the first time all the way to opening night?
You read it. You're looking for, what characters say about each other, where your timeline markers are for the telling of the story. You know what it's like when you're doing your pre-production. You're just trying to make sure that all those places that are necessary to move the story forward, you really have clearly in your mind. And I see the show. I don't know why, but it's almost like I'm watching a movie or I very, very visually see it. I know what I think the shape of the show is, what the set should look like, how the characters are even moving, how they sound. I get a very visual image of this show. So when I go to do a show, I'm working really closely with the set designer, probably closer than they appreciate sometimes, but I know what I want and what I think it should be. And then after auditions, when we come in for that first read, just to start to put the voices together, I like to put a show on its feet really fast. I'll do kind of a skeletal blocking so that now the characters, the actors can move with some idea of what it is I'm looking for, and they can start to bring their creativity and sensibilities to the roles. I'll lean on them to do their actor homework, but it's not unusual for me to talk about backstory or relationships in characters, especially in early rehearsals. One of the things that I always tell folks is bring a pencil.
Yes.
I'm crazy about, actors have this ability, this gift, I don't know what word would be appropriate, but they can develop a character as it goes. And sometimes I think people expect directors to have a hard idea of exactly what everything should be at the very first read through. And I don't believe that. I think that directors have that same creative juice, that we need to see these people that we've cast and hear these people in their moments. And so even though I've given them tentative blocking, or we think that this is what's happening in a particular scene, through the course of rehearsal, things change.
Very much so. You're
So
right. You're right.
it's not unusual for me to say, okay, we're going to try this a little bit differently. We're going to try, to work these things. Actors really need us to be able to shape it. And so it's tempo and it's visual pictures, just telling a good story. Yeah.
Now, can you let people at home know what pre-production is and what it entails?
It's usually meeting with your designers to talk about how you envision the set, levels, movement, doors, that kind of thing. Oftentimes with a costumer, you will talk about textures, colors, who needs to be in the forefront kind of thing. So you're working with all your designers, your sound designer. I do my lighting as much as I can. So but you're working with all those folks to make sure that we're all coming into the story with the same purpose. It's imagine that you're doing a production of Romeo and Juliet, and I've decided that I'm going to modernize it, and we're going to put a chain link fence in the background, and we're going to fight with baseball bats. If your costumer comes in and has put them in full long dresses, and it won't work. So it's really important for the whole creative team to have the same vision that the director does as you move forward so that you're successful.
I love that. That is so true. You want to make sure that you have all those little things taken care of before you get those actors.
That's right.
Once the actors get there, it's about getting that story.
It's a freight train in another direction. Yes.
Absolutely. So speaking of getting the actors, tell me about your audition process.
I tend to be fairly consistent with auditions. I ask folks, especially, I do a lot of musicals, so you need to come in with 16 bars, and it can be from the show. It doesn't have to be. I really tell actors every night when they get, to the audition, this is about you feeling the very best you can about this time that you're here. Because auditions are hellish. They're so nerve-wracking. And it doesn't matter how long you've done. I still, when I go into my actor feet, you still get nervous and you know what you're doing, and it just is. And probably because we don't do it as often as, like when I was in New York, you'd go to an audition every other day, and you get used to it. When you're only going to an audition 2 or 3 times a year, you get all wound up. So I tell the performers, sing your music. If you didn't like the way it went, if you missed your note, if you want to sing it again, do. I want you to leave feeling the very best you can about your time with me. And then we do cold readings. If it's a big dance show, there may be dance auditions, but it really, the main thing is to make sure that the performers are leaving saying, I did my best, and whatever happens is what happens, but I did my best. And so, in callbacks, I'll match people to read sides. We'll try to do duets so that we're looking at tenors of voices with each other. Just the old-fashioned heights and looks of people. But I really like performers that are very, very natural.
Of course.
And so I have a real bias toward that kind of, let's just be real people, as opposed to I'm performing.
It all warrants the show. If you're doing 42nd Street, you're going to get the big acting. But if you're doing a show like, I don't know, like a Sondheim piece, there's so much naturalism there. So that makes complete sense. Absolutely. So now, tell me some stuff that's in the future. I know you've got 1 or 2 projects coming up. So what are you doing?
Well, this COVID stuff we were supposed to do Mamma Mia in May of this year, and it got tabled till June, and then it got tabled and then it got tabled. So now it's on for next May, and hopefully it will happen. And then I know, and then I'm in that pre-production, trying to get all the ducks in a line for a production of Next to Normal that we hope to do shadowed with the National Theater of the Deaf. And so it's not announced because it's not for sure. We're still trying to get all the things, but we've had some preliminary conversations with National Theater of the Deaf. So it will, I'm hoping that it will happen.
And where will that be located?
It will be with the Opera House,
Okay.
Opera House Players, and it would be in probably 22. But I have had some conversations with them. They're open to that production, and National Theater of the Deaf is open to collaborating. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and working positively to try to hope that that can happen. You know, I don't know, you were away, but this shadowing, you know, you're talking about Deaf West, you know, did Big River and Spring Awakening, and there was a production, I think, of Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Seattle.
Yes, and they did some shadowing. And you know, years ago, I did a production of Les Mis, and my lead character hurt his knee on opening night and couldn't lift the people and do the things that he needed to do. And so I actually stepped on stage and shadowed him in that moment. So I was all dressed in black, and he did all the singing and all the speaking. I was just there to lift and tote and do the things that he needed to do. So, you know, it's the audience seemed to get into it. You know, it's really interesting. It's just a very different dynamic on stage to watch.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure Louis always loved it.
Probably not, but
yeah.
I'm sure that he was very thankful, though, to be able to still do the show.
I was thankful he was still able to do the show.
Of course. I mean, Jean Valjean, right?
Yes, yeah.
So now, what are 3 shows you want to direct? I think this is always a fun question.
I'm a big Sondheim nerd.
Same.
So I'm gonna say Merrily We Roll Along, which is one of my dearest favorite shows. I'd love to do Sunday in the Park. I'd really like to do Come From Away. It's a show that just speaks to me. I think it's really powerful, and it's very flexible and director. It needs a strong director to make all these little scenes and the way things move happen. I put a lot of my sets on wheels and move things a lot. You know, when we were doing Titanic at the Opera House, you can't do that big 3-story ship on that tiny little stage. And so we had 2 rolling units that came here or this way, or, you know, they had all different kinds of configurations. And so when you kind of go back in Sharon shows, you're going to see wheels in an awful lot of them.
My shows too. There's always wheels.
Yeah,
always.
It helps. Fast scene changes, interesting looks. Yeah,
Absolutely. Got to choreograph those scene changes.
you do.
Got to. So now we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think this is very fascinating that you actually run a children's summer camp.
Yeah.
So tell us about your children's summer camp.
Okay. It's called Connecticut Imagination Stations. And this year would have been the 14th year that we've done it, but with COVID, we opted for the safety of the kids to not have camp. But they come ages 6 through 16, and it's a 3-week day camp that we are in Suffield Players, Mapleton Hall. Mm-hmm. And so they take classes in the morning according to age. So the littlest are together, the mid-age and the older, and they take classes in their age groups in dance and singing and theater, usually tech or script analysis. And then in the afternoon, we rehearse a 1-act MTI Broadway junior musical. So we've done Mary Poppins and Lion King and Into the Woods. And so, you know, it's all the fun musicals, and they love it. We stay to 30, 32 kids about, and they, you know, a lot of them have come in at 6 or 7 and stay for all those years until they age out. We've had a couple go on to college in theater. Not that I take credit for that, but you know, it's a place when they really love it. It's fun to have that place to go. And I mean, some of the families have moved away. We have one family that is in Texas now, and they come up every summer for camp. We have one family that's moved to France, they come back every summer for camp. So these kids make bonds, you know, because it's not just their local school friends, it's from other towns, some from Mass, some from Connecticut. And they look forward to this 3 weeks, not just for the fun of doing a show, but to see their friends.
Of course.
So
And they do everything.
They do everything. They sew the costumes, they paint the sets, we hang the lights, but some of the older kids will run the light board. Sometimes they come back after they've aged out and they act as junior counselors.
Cool.
It's a magical 3 weeks. It's hot, it's busy, you know, to get a whole show done in 3 weeks. But I'm always so proud of them. They do fantastic work because they love it. Those are the kids that really want to be there.
Of course.
So,
and now if someone wanted to get involved in this, a child wanted to go to this summer camp, how would they go about finding out more information about it?
we tend to be kind of word of mouth because so many kids come back from year to year. But I will give you my email address. And then the other thing folks can do is that they can actually call Suffield Players, and then they will usually forward the information on. But the announcement for the show goes out in January. We start registrations in January, and we're going to do Madagascar next year.
That's awesome.
So it'll be
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
It is a fun one. Yeah.
I'm excited. Now, is it different working with children compared to adults? Do you use the same approach? What is kind of the way you go with kids compared to the way you go with adults when it's about directing? Yeah.
The kids actually are a lot more open to giving things a try than the adults are sometimes.
True.
I tend to treat them pretty much the same. I try to instill in them that this is something that I love a lot, and we need to treat it respectfully because the audience has an expectation, and you have a responsibility to fellow castmates, you know, to treat this. Of course, we're having fun. I mean, it's no sense doing if you're not having fun, but I want you to take the show seriously. And so we still block and rehearse and do all the things that I do just like with adults, maybe a few more theater games around the edges, but it's kind of the same. I try to teach them that respect for the stage. And, you know, most of them are not going to go on to being performers, you know, in any level, but they might grow up to be audience members. And that's really important, to come in and have an understanding of how much work it takes to get a show up and running, to really take a look at the costumes or take a look at the lighting and understand what was involved, to have that audience member that turns into an adult that really understands. I think it's important.
It also molds people.
Oh, absolutely.
Working together, camaraderie. I mean, it's.
Yeah. It gives you I think theater for me gave me a sense of humor and permission to mess up, and it's okay. You know, you talk about improv. Well, think about all the opportunities or necessities for adults to think on their feet and being able to handle something that's thrown at them and not getting crazy about it. And, you know, and there's a lot of studies that show for kids, especially, it improves reading skills. It improves, I mean, there's so many pluses for the arts for kids.
I agree, and it gives them the ability to express their feelings. Mm-hmm. The arts are just so important.
Yeah, empathy, to understand what other people are feeling in this day and age. It's really important that we think of others and not just ourselves, and understand what it's like to walk in their shoes.
Agreed. Well, I mean, thank you for doing that for them. I mean, it's
fun, you know, and I'll say this, whether it's Connecticut Imagination Stations or any show that you do with adults, it's a team. It's not just the director. It's the choreographer and the stage manager and the costumer and the producer. And it's so many people that are bringing their love and their effort and their hours and hours to this process. So it's a team effort, and we're not really talking about all those other folks, but it's never just the director. There's a lot of people involved, and I've been blessed to have some really great actors and artistic crew around me.
Same. It's, when you find that the right people that you kind of click with, it just makes the experience, like, it's so magical.
That's the word I was going to say. Yes. Yeah. And there's nothing else in life like it.
No, it's
No.
true. When you get to finally see, like, everybody's hard work up on the stage, it's just, there's nothing like that.
No.
And
And
hearing
it
people's
doesn't,
reaction.
yeah, it doesn't matter if you've been in rehearsal for 4 months.
Exactly.
Opening night is and closing and every show in between. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Same.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. All right, so I'm going to ask you a rapid fire question, meaning something that is just very like, here it is, and you tell me your answer for that. And that is,
Okay.
what is one show you could see over and over and over again, and why?
Merrily We Roll Along. I absolutely love it. For those that don't know it, it's a Stephen Sondheim musical. Some people say it's troubled. It goes in backward chronology, which sometimes confuses audience members. But I just dearly love it. I have seen it many times. I could see it every day. I just don't grow tired of it. And it's interesting because it was not terribly successful in its original run in New York. So it's been reworked several times. I mean, when it first opened, the main character starts at his high school reunion. And so you have all the high school kids in the background, and he's saying, live for your dreams and all the cliche sorts of things. And the kids are starting to banter back at him. And the idea is that it goes backward in time, and it shows where he is now and how he's made these little tiny trades and little tiny, he's gone off the path of his original dream for the job that had more money or for multitudes of reasons. But when you go back then, at the end of the show, he's young and dreamy and looking at the sky and saying, it's our time, and we're going to go out and we're going to write this show, and we're going to create these wonderful things that will impact the world. And so you've seen how far he was from that. And I don't know, there's just something about that show. I did it in grad school, and someday I will direct that show. I love it. It was in the Huntington not that long ago. A couple years ago, Huntington and Boston did it.
That was my favorite version I've seen.
Yeah, it was very, very good. And it was in New York at Roundabout this year. And it was interesting because they did it with, I think, 6 actors. So they played a bunch of different roles.
Yeah, that was the off-Broadway one, right?
Yeah, and they took a scene from the original straight play to kind of give an idea of why he made some of the choices that he did. So that was kind of interesting. I had not read that play. So it was, I liked that. But I love it. It makes me cry. It's got great music, and I think really wonderful story and characters, and someday.
I love it. It's an answer that a lot of people I've never really heard before. When people think Sondheim, they think like Sweeney Todd, Into the Woods. It's rare you hear someone like just gush over Merrily We Roll Along.
Well, and maybe because it has a little bit of theater in it, it kind of speaks to the theater geeks that we are, and so people will travel for it. There was a documentary came out, I want to say 4 years ago, that had a showing in New York, and I got off of work early and I took the train into New York to see this documentary. And Lonnie Price, who was the original in the original cast, directed it, and it was fun. It was really, really cool. Someday. Yeah.
I think I saw that documentary, actually. I feel like I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it as an encore too. So I mean, people want to do it. We just have to figure how to make it work.
I saw all 3 of the versions you just talked about.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's a beautiful show. It's
is
gorgeous. It's like you said, the timeline is what makes it so difficult. for audiences to understand. So if you have the right premise and are just so careful about how you tread through the story, it works.
One of the things that I've seen that worked really well is they used projections, and they actually gave you the year and kind of headlines, Kennedy comes to office or whatever, so that you had something to kind of hook onto before the scene started. And I thought that helped the audience.
That definitely would do it.
Yeah, at this point it's hard for me because I know it so well. I don't know where I'm filling in gaps that the show isn't giving. You know what I mean? It's hard to come at it with fresh eyes because I just know it so well.
Of course. So now I'm going to ask you a question that I love, because I think that, anybody who's watching this, maybe somebody who wants to get into the business or is thinking about going to college for musical theater or for theater in general, and that's, what's the best advice you were given about the business?
Well, if we're going from the college aspect to start there, I would say make sure that you know what kind of performer you want to be. Do you want to do television and film, or do you want to do stage? Because the focus there is very, very different. And the program that you choose really needs to be specifically aimed to that goal. I mean, there are actors that cross over and do both. I really wanted to do stage work, so I haven't spent much time with television and film. I wanted to be on stage and live theater. So I think when I have kids that are saying, I want to go do this, I think that's the first thing I ask them is, how do you see your ideal career? What is it you want to do? And make sure that you're choosing a company or choosing a theater or choosing a university program that is going to help you either get that equity card or put you in contact with professionals so that you start to have some contacts and just to have a sense of what it's like in the real world. I guess the best advice I was ever given is that if you can do anything else and be happy, go do it. Because it's such a hard career. You're forever being turned down and you don't know why. And it's very hard to not internalize that and say, it's me. Well, maybe you look like the ex-wife, or maybe you're taller than the guy they cast, or you never know why you don't get cast. All you can do is make sure that your skills are there so you're ready. So for me, I knew that I couldn't do anything else. I would just melt into a puddle if I didn't have theater. So, you just keep going. And so that's always what I tell folks. If you can do anything else, go do it. And if you can't, then keep going and don't quit. And make sure that your own skills are where they need to be so that you're ready when that opportunity comes, because that opportunity will come. And just make sure that you keep your eyes on the prize. Don't be the guy from Merrily who makes the small trades. And 25 years from now, I don't know, making training films for some company when what you really wanted to do is something else.
That's a good answer. So I'm going to ask you one more question. It's the same question that I ask everybody at the end of every interview. It's my personal favorite, because I think that everybody that gives this answer is speaking to everybody who's watching. And that's, what draws you to live theater, to live performance?
It's my breath. I don't know what draws me to it. I mean, I've done it for so long. I just know that in a theater, I am happier and more content and more alive than I am anywhere else. I absolutely love that interaction with actors as we build a story. I love listening to an audience all gasp at the same time or laugh at the same time, or oh, look at that, and that's that one little thing you were really hoping they'd catch. Lighting, costuming, directing, acting, whatever it happens to be, I really love the live theater. This has been a challenge with this COVID to start to figure out what it looks like, because I've seen some wonderful, wonderful theater that has been taped, that, professional productions have been put online for us to watch, and I'm appreciative. But, now moving forward to do a Zoom play, it's not quite the same. And so I'm still trying to wrap my brain around what this is, for this next 6 months or a year or whatever it happens to be. But that to be in a place where everybody together is community in that moment of seeing somebody on stage laugh or be heartbroken and feel their pain or their joy, it just is a magical thing.
Soon. We'll be back soon. We're going to be back soon. I know
Positive thinking.
I can
That's
feel
right.
it. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for all of that information and for just being here and sharing your story with us. And your insight. It was wonderful. You're wonderful.
You're very kind. Thank you. Thanks.
And I can't wait to see you on stage soon. You need to get
that
back
would
on
be
stage.
fun. I do.
Yes.
I'm
All
agreeing.
right. I'm waiting.
Okay.
All right, Sharon, you have a good night.
Thanks, Eddie. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Sharon FitzHenry is such a joy. I love her, and I can't wait to see her next venture, which is Mamma Mia, at the Opera House Players in May 2021. Well, thank you all again for joining us. Really quickly, just a reminder, if you are so inclined to help K&E Theater Group with their supersized 2021 season, you can donate. If you're on Facebook, you can click on the PayPal link in the comment section below. If you are not on Facebook, you can go to our website, which is ketg.org, and you can click on Support KETG and donate there. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter, watch past local Spotlight Series interviews. You can check out our 2021 season or pictures from our past season. So thank you again for joining us. We're so excited to continue this for a couple more weeks. So hope to see you again soon. Have a great night.